The Montreal Expos were in the National League from 1969 to 2004. After many years of being average to well below average, in 1994, they had their greatest season with a record of 74-40. But then, the player strike happened. As a result, the postseason was canceled and the best season in franchise history was done. The Expos, as a result, ended up selling off a lot of their players and lost a lot of fan interest. This ended up being the beginning of an end, as failing to make money, along with retaining key players, led to the eventual replacement by the Nationals. So now, in MLB The Show 24, we will rebuild the Montreal Expos and return them to the MLB. There were a lot of things in place to save the Montreal Expos back in the day. Those plans did not come to fruition, but we will bring them to life here in MLB The Show as a new franchise starting up. And we will welcome Labatt Stadium, which was one of the proposed stadiums. It's actually called Labatt Park, but it looks like a full-on stadium. But it is going to be a lot of fun, and we're bringing back the classic uniforms, and each year we can change these up. So this is what we're going to start out. Those classic baby blue away jerseys, those are amazing. So first we start out with the expansion draft, and let's just get into the rules here. So there's a max 2 players from each organization that can't be selected for the 26-man roster, but all players selected must be a max of 75 overall and a max of C potential. Relief pitchers must be a max of 71 overall. That's due to the ratings this year in MLB The Show 24. And then the farm system will be all custom prospects with only 2 B potential players in the entire organization. So this is going to be a full-on rebuild. So let's get into the opening roster here as we start out with a man that has a really big following, and he is a superstar. We need a man that's going to put butts in the seats, and our number 1 pick is going to be Tim Anderson. In MLB The Show, he is only 71 overall, and for the previous all-star who's now really trying to kind of get back to that stardom after, remember, he had 4 straight 300 seasons hitting 300. He kind of took a step back last season, and it led to him departing from the White Sox and signing with the Miami Marlins on a 1-year $5 million deal. But he will be our star, at least to start it out, but only on that 1-year deal. So who else will we have along with him? Let's go to the San Francisco Giants and get Lamont Wade Jr. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to lead us in home runs this year. He has very, very solid ratings. Even at 30 years old, he has excellent discipline, really good clutch. His power versus right is 73. And I think this is going to be a guy that's going to be at first base at least through the beginning of this rebuild, and who knows, he could build a whole career with the Montreal Expos. He hit 256 last year. He hit 17 home runs. I think he has 25 home run potential. We'll see, but I think he's a really good cornerstone piece, at least in the middle of the lineup to start out this series. I'm excited for him and having a good lefty bat in the lineup. I really love lefty bats hitting like at the 2 and 3 position in the lineup. Now let's go to some younger guys that we will at least start out building this team around, and we go to the hot corner. Buddy Kennedy, probably a name you haven't heard of, but he is probably not going to touch the field for the Cardinals because Nolan Arenado is playing third base. But this is a guy that has pretty good fielding attributes, 74 and 72 accuracy, 74 fielding, 72 accuracy for his throwing, 88 speed, and his hitting attributes aren't that bad. This is a guy that hasn't really gotten a chance to prove what he can do, but he's been a guy that is kind of been on the fringe of the MLB. He's been cut a couple of times, and now he's back here with the Expos with a fresh start. Let's go to another young player, and the youngest player at the MLB level we have here to start out this series, and we will look at Lawrence Butler from the Oakland Athletics, soon to be Las Vegas Athletics. He is 23 years old and he can kind of play all around. He's not really a great defensive player, but he's actually not terrible. I mean, he is a guy that hasn't really blossomed yet at the MLB level, but he did have about 123 at-bats last year. He hit 211. It wasn't super impressive, but maybe with us he gets, like I said, another fresh start. But he had a 582 OPS. That was not good. So we're going to have to develop him. So who is he going to learn from? If he's going to play in the outfield, who better to learn from than Jason Hayward, the 5-time Gold Glover? And Jason Hayward is now 34 years old. We're not asking him to do too much, but his defensive ability and his leadership is going to be key for some of these younger outfielders that we're going to introduce into this series. And look at the number of quirks he has. I was surprised to see this. He's never been necessarily a great hitter, but he's great defensively. And like I said, maybe some of these young outfielders can learn from him. So let's go to a guy that I want to just keep my eye on. It's Zach McKinstry. He's 28. He's no spring chicken, but in baseball, your prime is kind of age 28 to 33, like somewhere in between there. And I think McKinstry is a guy to look out for. He's got a 91 arm, and he can play everywhere on the ball diamond, it seems like. Second base, third base, short, left field, and right field. And that arm is going to definitely be useful, especially when we have injuries. He can start at different positions. It's going to be fun to see him develop in this series. So let's go to the pitching staff. Who will be our ace? Well, we start out with Javier Assad, the Mexican pitcher, only 26 years of age. He is a fringe starter for the Cubs, and because of that, I'm going to give him a fresh start here with the Expos. Now, one thing I do like about him, he's got 85 pitching clutch, and he actually is a decent guy overall at 74 in C potential. And seeing that he's 26 years old, he had a really good year last year, in my opinion. 3.05 ERA, a 1.23 WHIP. I think he gets a really good opportunity here with the Expos to show that he can possibly be a cornerstone in the rotation. I don't know if he's going to be our ace of the now and future, but right now he's kind of our best option because with the expansion rules, 75 overall is the max, and he's just under that at 74 in C potential. Let's go to the Cleveland Guardians, where we will select Xavier Curry as another guy in our rotation. He's 25 years old. He started 9 games last year. He was just okay. But at 25 years of age, you still have time to develop, and I'm kind of banking on that youth. Now, he has 91 break, so he's going to have some nasty stuff, but what does discourage me a little bit, his stamina is very low for a starter. So let's go to the bullpen, where I go to the Brewers, my hometown team here, Elvis Peguero. Now, I don't believe in deep potential, so that will be bumped up to a 71C. And he's a guy that actually has good stuff, and I was watching a lot of action with him last year, obviously being a fan of the Brewers, and he was really good. 3.38 ERA, 1.22 WHIP. I'm excited for him to be kind of one of those leaders out of the bullpen. But let's go to the rest of the squad. Let's start with Kyle Higashioka behind the plate. Now, he is going to be in a platoon role, but he's never been necessarily a great hitter, and he's not great defensively, but maybe, just maybe, he could have a late career resurgence here. He's been in the majors for quite a long time, to be honest with you. But I'm going to be platooning him more than likely, at least to start out this series, with Sam Huff. Sam Huff, a guy that hasn't really gotten a big opportunity to be a full-time starter. He's going to get it here with the Expos. He is great defensively. He's got an 87 arm. So right away to start this series, Huff is going to be the catcher starting out because of his defensive ability. But last year, he actually, in limited at-bats, had a 801 OPS, which is actually pretty good for a catcher because catchers are pretty hard to find good bats for. So let's move to the infield. We already talked about Tim Anderson. We already talked about Lamont Wade. Who's going to be at second base? Santiago Espinal. Espinal has excellent contact ratings here in MLB The Show. He's always been kind of a average hitter, maybe slightly above, but he's got great contact versus left, pretty good contact versus right, 85 vision. He's not the greatest fielder, but he does have good accuracy on his throws. But we'll see what he ends up being. He's 29 years old, and I don't know if he's really going to be sticking around here for the long term, but you never know. If he outperforms what he is right now in his career, he could be around for a while. Let's talk about some backup infielders here. Some utility players like Jeter Downs. He is 25 years old. I'm not sure what he has in the tank. He hasn't really had a shot at the MLB level yet. And if he proves in, certain roles he can step in, maybe he gets a little more playing time. But I think to at least speed up his development, he could be shot down to AAA to start out this series. But right now he's penciled in on the opening day roster. Another guy that's in his mid-20s, Jose Barrero. He's a utility guy. He hasn't been the greatest hitter, but he's just more or less a depth guy. He is just 60 overall. I don't really have, too bright of an outlook for him, but he's a guy that can fill in. Maybe a young guy that we could get something out of is Will Brennan. He actually is a very good hitter versus right-handers, and he actually hit 266 last year, but there was a big issue. He slugged terribly, 356. I was pretty surprised at that number. His OPS was 655, which it's pretty bad. So I think in this series, we're going to have to get him some at-bats and try to get him to slug a little better. But his defensive ratings are pretty good. He's in the mid to high 70s in everything. So he's a guy to maybe look out for, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Obviously, Jason Hayward is going to be a utility outfielder. He's not just going to play center. He's going to play right field too. And that's because we have a Blazer in Dayron Blanco from the Kansas City Royals. He has 99 speed. He is going to be hitting at the top of the lineup to start this series. He is 30 years old, and he was actually pretty good in spurts last year with the Royals. He hit 258. He slugged 452. I mean, he was actually really, really good, and he stole 24 bases. It's going to be fun to see him at 99 speed. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. So our starting pitchers obviously is led by Javier Assad, but we also picked up German Marquez from the Colorado Rockies, but he is hurt in real life, so we are going to keep him at A-ball until the All-Star break. That's when he's projected to come back in real life. And I think he's going to be kind of the mentor in this rotation. He hasn't been an excellent pitcher, not even a great pitcher. He's just been solid in the MLB, and poor him because he's been really like the only solid pitcher for the Rockies consistently over the past, 7-8 years. And now he moves on to a new team. Now he does have a 2-year contract, so he will be on the squad at least for this season and next. But he will return at the All-Star break. He is also a trade candidate as well. So that is, if we're getting to a point where we think we can get some value out of him, it could be a move. Now, I want to talk about a guy that we just needed spots to fill in the rotation, and Austin Gomber has been an absolute nightmare since that Nolan Arenado trade. I think he flashed some potential with the Cardinals, got traded for Nolan Arenado, and has just not lived up to any hype. He has declined every single season, and I got to be honest, his spot in the rotation it's on the line for sure. But one guy we decided to take on is Patrick Corbin. Now, we did replace the Expos with the Nationals, just like they did back to the Expos back in 2004-2005 season. And Corbin is going to probably be playing in his last season in the majors at age 34, deep potential, 66 overall. It doesn't seem like he has much left here in the tank. Let's talk about some bullpen guys. We have Buck Farmer, who's decent. Elvis Peguero, we already talked about. And one thing I highlighted here with the expansion draft rules is that we had a max overall of 71 overall. And if you look at the ratings this year in MLB The Show, especially for relief pitchers, they're extremely, extremely low. Like, they are extremely low. Nobody really has a relief staff that has guys that are like multiple guys above 70. Like, a lot of staffs look like these ratings here, and that's why we kind of set that max limit. But we have a couple of good guys. Jay Jackson is 36, but he actually had a great season last year. Brock Burke is a guy that we got, I believe, from the Texas Rangers. He pitched 59 innings last year, 1.22 whip, Not bad, actually. 52 strikeouts to only 9 walks. Zach Birdie, he's deep potential, 59 overall. He's 29 years old. I'm not sure he will stick around either, but this is kind of what we have to work with. So after all of that, here's our rankings. We are obviously the last ranked team. We are a new team, 29th in contact, 30th in power, 29th in pitching, 27th defensively, but we do have some speed, led by the speedster in center field. And I think we're going to be a team that is going to be manufacturing runs, not necessarily, hitting a lot of home runs or doing things like that. We're going to steal some bases. We're going to bunt some guys over. We're going to need to do that in order to stay in contention here, at least to get some butts in the seats. I will briefly talk about some prospects, but if you missed the prequel series, we have 2 top prospects, and they are the only B potential guys in the entire organization to start out right now. First is the 19-year-old Gary Shoemaker, a guy that throws in the upper 90s with that fastball, but he's 19. He is not a very polished pitcher. He can throw hard, but that's about it right now. He's going to definitely need to develop, but he is our number 1 prospect in our organization. You can see his ratings right here. He's got 74 stamina. I'm going to need to have that develop a little more because I want him to go late in games. His walks per 9 does have to get up. His control has to get up, but he is a guy that has an excellent arm right now as a lefty. Then on the offensive side, our second B potential prospect and our number 2 prospect in the organization is a 5-year player in college in Augustus Macklin. He can flat out hit the ball. And one thing that's going to be true with him is that he is going to drive in a lot of runs in this series. That's just my prediction right now. He's 67 overall and B potential. He's not the greatest runner. He can play corner outfield, but I kind of see him as the future at first base as Lamont Wade gets older, and we will see what he turns into. But I think he's going to be a pretty big bat in the future of this lineup. We will talk about prospects in a couple of episodes and how we're going to go about scouting. We have the number 10 pick in this upcoming draft, so you don't want to miss how we're going to develop this team, and I hope you guys are excited. So let's get into spring training here as we look at a couple of games and some highlights in them as we take on a couple of teams and just get our feet wet with this new organization and start to learn these players. Here's Dayron Blanco. 99 speed, is probably going to be the center fielder of the now and probably next season or 2. And you can just see the wheels are on full display right there, and get ready to see a lot of that here, at least in season 1. Buddy Kennedy, one of those young infielders that we want to build around. He walks right there as we move on to the bottom of the 3rd. Here is Dayron Blanco back to the plate. And look at this. A ground ball to second causes the overthrow because of that 99 speed, putting that pressure on the defense. And it's going to be men on 2nd and 3rd. And that's just a little bit of a glimpse of what Dayron Blanco is going to do to opposing defenses. That speed just scares you enough. And that was actually ruled a hit, believe it or not. Here is Santiago Espinal with runners on 2nd and 3rd. Now he hits 1-2 left field, and he is going to be a great contact hitter, probably somewhere at the top of our lineup. We're still kind of feeling it out here, but today he's hitting in that 2 spot, and he makes it 1-0 versus the Astros. Here comes Tim Anderson, the star of the team right now. He hits one hard to right field and drives in a run. He's going to hit in the middle of that lineup, probably either in the 3, maybe the 2 spot, but probably the 5 or 6 spot too. He's going to hit all around there, but definitely in the middle of that lineup. And he's going to be a guy that's going to drive in a lot of runs this season. Here is the 23-year-old Lawrence Butler at the plate. He walks at this AB versus Justin Verlander. And that brings up Jason Hayward, the 34-year-old 5-time Gold Glover. And he swings at this one, and it's crushed, and it's gone. It's 5-0 here for the Expos versus the Astros, and that one goes 380 to right field. And I'm excited for Jason Hayward. I've always been a fan of Jason Hayward. I'm hoping that I can hit the ball well with him here in this series, and he will have kind of a final chapter to his career here with the Expos. That would be the goal, for him to retire as an Expo. But we move on here in this spring training as we get used to these players, and let's just talk about difficulty. So we are going to be on Hall of Fame for both pitching and hitting, and it will be dynamic difficulty, so it will adjust as we play through the season. and how we kind of play with our controls here. We do use classic pitching because I want ratings to matter the most in this series. And I do want to have some user control, but I don't want to be the whole outcome. I want player development and ratings to really reign the most. And here, the hitting interface is going to just be timing. So I want it to be timing. Like I said, there is little user input. You just have to time up a pitch and obviously judge balls and strikes. But I want those ratings to really be the determining factor on how players perform. Here is Will Brennan at the plate, and he hits one to right field off of the wall, and it's a perfect hit here in the top of the third inning. And we get a run across the board, and Will Brennan is a guy to look out for. I can't wait to see what he develops into. He could be one of those surprise guys. He's in his mid-20s. He's going to play corner outfield, but we'll see what he turns into. Here is Lamont Wade, who I project is going to lead our team in average. He hits one up the middle, and that one will just be a ground out to short. We end up losing this game 5-1 to the Cardinals. But the Expos are getting warmed up here before our eventual return to Montreal. And here we face the Miami Marlins, and this will be the final game action we will cover. And I want to show Gary Shoemaker off here. You can see the scouting report. That four-seam fastball can reach 99 mile an hour. I want that two-seamer to be thrown a little harder than 92 max because I want it to look like a four-seamer and then kind of drop off as that two-seamer. And we will see what his pitches end up being. Right now he only has four: a changeup, a two-seamer, a four-seamer, and that curveball. But we will see how he develops in this series, and we will cover him pretty closely along with the other prospects as well. Here he faces the best hitter in baseball at this current day, Luis Arraez, who will swing and miss at the high fastball, and that's going to generate a lot of strikeouts here for the young Shoemaker. But here in the second inning, facing Nick Fortes, he leaves one up in the zone and hangs it for Fortes, and he does not forgive him with that pitch. It's a home run, and that's the young 19-year-old, and he's going to have to learn that command is going to be important for him. And he leaves a hanger there, but now settles down a little bit, facing Jazz Chisholm, and gets him to swing and miss. So he gets through this first outing here in spring training, and he will start out at the AA level along with Augustus Macklin. And we will talk more about prospects in a future episode. But we get through spring training going 13-17. Actually, I was pretty happy with the showing that we had. I thought we were going to just absolutely stink it up, but we end up with some decent, highlights in spring training. And I'm very, very excited to get this series started. We will be highlighting storylines throughout this series too. I want this to be a personal series. You guys will be involved in this. So I have custom prospects who are already in this series. You've seen probably a couple on the screen that we've flashed so far, but we will cover them in detail in a future episode. But next episode, we will start the season as we will go on the road to face the Cincinnati Reds and start the return of the Montreal Expos to Montreal and the MLB in the NL East, replacing the Nationals. So I hope you guys will enjoy this series. I'm excited for it, and we will get this series underway right away in the next episode. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.
Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still tryna fight my demons. Cause we all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina. Outside, it's a war going on.